Hi folks, we are diving into Module 12. I promise you we're almost there. We really only have 17 chapters that we really investigate, and so we are on Chapter 12, so you guys are almost there. As we are working our way through this short lecture, I want you to take notes of 5 key items that I'm going to have you reflect on when you're writing your reflection at the end of this week. The first one in the first paragraph, I want you to address stability and change. The second one, I want you to address love and close relationships. The third paragraph, adult lifestyles. The fourth paragraph, challenges in marriage, parenting, and divorce. The fifth paragraph, gender communication styles, relationships, and classification. Those 5 paragraphs are very neatly presented to you, so you can just write a paragraph on each one. So maybe as you are taking notes, you can kind of write on each one of those just to make that process a little bit more simple. We have talked about attachment from our first module when we were talking about infancy, but we talked about attachment in babies and infants that was being formed through their adults and caregivers in their lives. And we are still talking about attachment in adults. And attachment in adults can look like a couple different things. The first is a secure attachment style that has been developed throughout their life. And these people have a positive view of relationships and they find it easy to get close to others. An avoidant attachment style is they're hesitant about getting involved in romantic relationships. And then the anxious attachment style, they demand closeness, but they're less trusting, more emotional, jealous, and possessive. Again, this forms in infancy, and it is still continuing into this early adulthood. And again, that is from 18 to 25 years old. When we look at the different faces of love that the text talks about, it really talks about 4 different types of love: intimacy, friendship, affectionate love, and then consummate love. The first one, intimacy, there is self-disclosure and the sharing of private thoughts. Erickson talks about this in one of his stages, intimacy versus isolation, and we've talked about Erickson and studied him throughout the whole entire lifespan as we have progressed through this semester. But he talks about intimacy versus isolation as intimacy is finding oneself while losing oneself in another person, but the failure to achieve that stage of intimacy and isolation results in social isolation, that they do not trust themselves or others around, like in a group of people. Intimacy and independence is a balance between intimacy and commitment, and independence and freedom. And when we look at friendship, friendship plays important lifespan development role. Romantic love, passionate love, or eros. There's a strong component of sexuality and infatuation. In affectionate love, there is compassionate love, and it's a desire to have the other person near based on a deep and caring affection. And then there's consummate love, which is the strongest form of love. Sternberg talks about that consummate love in his triarchic theory of love, and his 3 dimensions of love are passion, intimacy, and commitment. We can see that he defines that consummate love as the strongest, fullest form of love with passion, intimacy, and commitment. He also talks about infatuation, which includes passion but no intimacy and commitment. Affectionate love is a combination of intimacy and commitment, but there's no passion. And then fascist love is passion and commitment without intimacy. This is a pretty cool diagram here that shows you the different types of love that Sternberg cites, and then what type of qualities are present in there. So if you want to go ahead and pause that, and you can take a look at that a little bit better. When we look at love and close relationships, we can see some differences and variations in cross-cultural romantic relationships. And again, these are just generalizations. We can see that in China and Korea, intimacy is more diffused with more emphasis on connections outside of the romantic relationships. Japan has a dropping marriage rate. France and Brazil are the most passionate. They have most romantic interest, and France has the most extramarital affairs. In Qatar, their casual dating is forbidden, and public displays of affection can be punished with going to jail. But the young adults are using social media and the internet to arrange private co-ed get-togethers at hotels. When we look at adult lifestyles, the single adults, typically there are stereotypes associated with being single, and they range from a swinging single to desperate lonely and suicidal single. But again, those are stereotypes. Millennials tend to find dates online more often than other adults, and the pattern of fast sex and slow love can sometimes occur. Common problems: forming intimate relationships with other adults. That can be difficult. Confronting loneliness, finding a place in a society that is marriage oriented. All of those things are common problems. Advantages, though, of this age range: you are having time to make decisions about your own life, have time to develop personal resources to meet goals. There's a freedom to make autonomous decisions, can pursue one's own schedules and interests, the opportunities to explore new places and try new things, and then, of course, there is newfound privacy that was not had in earlier years. When we look at adult lifestyles and cohabitating with each other, this is the idea of living together in a sexual relationship without being married. Reasons to do this: sometimes it's to spend time together, share expenses, or evaluate the compatibility between the two people. There are lower marital satisfaction and increased likelihood of divorce if you do cohabitate before marriage, but it is not an unilateral statistic. Married adults, marriage rates in the United States have declined in recent years. 20% of U.S. adults never married in 2014. In 2016, the average age for a first marriage climbed from 29.5 for men and 27.4 for women, and so people are waiting a little bit longer to get married. Marriage in adolescence is more likely to end in divorce, so the younger you get married, the greater the chance of divorce. The average duration of marriage in the U.S. is currently just over 9 years, which is pretty short in my opinion. And emerging adults are optimistic about marriage and see it as a way to create a stable life for successful marriage. Again, these cross-cultural comparisons, aspects of marriage will vary across cultures, and there are different values being placed on being domestic, and religion plays an important role in many cultures. When we are looking at benefits of a good marriage, people who are married are typically, they live longer, they have healthier lives, and they feel less physical and emotional stress. When we look at divorced adults, a lot of times factors that go into divorce can include adultery, just growing apart, domestic violence, again, getting married young, a youthful marriage, a low educational level, low income level, not having a religious affiliation, having divorced parents, or having a baby before marriage. All of those things can lead to an increased divorce rate. When these adults remarry, some things to think about: men are more likely to remarry than women. The remarriage occurs sooner for the partners who initiated the divorce, and the second marriage is more unstable than the first marriage, and there are higher rates of depression but improved financial status within that second marriage. Making a marriage work, you can see there Gottman's 7 practices of a working marriage. Remarried couples have realistic expectations within their second marriage. They develop a new positive relationships within the family, and they counter set relationship patterns, or ghosts as the text calls it. Becoming a parent in this age range, there are a lot of myths and there's a lot of reality that goes into it. A myth is that the birth of a child will save a failing marriage. Children will think, feel, and behave like the parents did in their parents' childhood. Another myth, having a child gives the parents a second chance at achievement. If they couldn't do certain things in their youth, does not mean that their kids will be able to. And then parenting is an instinct and requires no training. That is definitely a myth. Trends in childbearing over the past couple years. The average age of a first-time mother is 27 years old. And in 2016, for the first time, more U.S. women were giving birth in their 30s than in their 20s. By giving birth to fewer children and reducing the demands of childcare, women are more free to have a significant portion of their lifespan for other endeavors, and that include a career. Men are apt to invest a greater amount of time in fathering than in years past, and parental care is often supplemented by institutional care. And that is schoolings, daycares, preschools, those type of things. This was an interesting chart, the divorce rate in relation to the number of years married. So you can see that average length of a marriage was 9 years, and you can see it peak there right before the 10, up near the percentage of divorces. You can see up there around getting close to that 10 as well. And then it slides down very quickly as the years progress. The percentage of divorces decline quite drastically. Gender and communication. Some differences. Women prefer rapport talk and men prefer report talk. Women highly value relationships and nurturing connections, and men are less relationship oriented than men. Again, these are just generalizations. Gender roles and friendships. Women tend to have closer, more supportive friendships, and men tend to have more competitive friendships. And then female and male friendships, they learn about common feelings and interests and shared characteristics about each other and each other's genders. Problems may arise in cross-gender friendships if one friend wants a romance and the other does not. And then masculinity and femininity, individuals seen on, this is a complete continuum with masculine and feminine traits. And then we also have transgender, individuals who adopt a gender identity that differs from the one assigned to them at birth. And then there are different options that are there. Again, please go ahead and summarize and reflect on this reading with those 5 paragraphs. If you have any questions, if you want to chat about anything, please let me know, and I look forward to reading your lecture reflections.